We hear about artificial intelligence everywhere, don't we? I mean, chatbots writing essays, systems making really critical decisions. It feels like AI is reshaping everything.
It really does. The buzz is undeniable.
But beneath all that excitement, there's this crucial, really fundamental question bubbling up about how we should even define it. Never mind regulate it.
Exactly. Definition is proving incredibly tricky.
So let's unpack this. We've got a fascinating piece of research here from Daniel Braun titled Why Artificial Intelligence Should Not Be Regulated.
Now, hold on. That sounds provocative.
It is, but it's not arguing AI can't pose risks. It definitely can.
Yeah.
The argument is more subtle. Is artificial intelligence actually the right category for regulation in the first place?
Ah, okay. So it's about the label itself. And what's fascinating is that lawmakers globally, the EU with its big AI Act, the US with its initiatives, they're drafting regulations specifically targeting AI.
Right.
But this commentary challenges that whole premise. It argues that focusing on AI as the thing to regulate is flawed, mainly because the term is just so vaguely defined.
So vague, it might be useless for lawmaking.
Essentially, yes. The argument is the term isn't suitable, maybe not even necessary, for managing the actual risks technology brings.
Okay, so our mission today is to dive deep into this argument. We need to explore why defining AI is like nailing jelly to a wall.
Ah, good analogy.
And look at how different governments are trying and maybe struggling to define it. And crucially, why this expert thinks we should be regulating the applications of software, not the fuzzy concept of AI.
So focusing on what the software does, not what it is.
Exactly. By the end, this should give you a really useful shortcut to understanding this whole complex world of AI governance.
Sounds good. Where do we start?
Well, let's start with history. The term artificial intelligence, it's actually been around for 68 years, since the Dartmouth Summer Research Project on Artificial Intelligence back in '56.
Wow, 68 years. That's a long time for a term to still be debated.
Right. But the problem, as our source points out, is that the word intelligence itself is, well, famously ill-defined.
True. Psychologists, philosophers, they still argue about it.
And just sticking artificial in front hasn't exactly cleared things up.
Not at all. And if you zoom out a bit, for decades, this ambiguity, it wasn't a massive
For
problem.
researchers, maybe?
Yeah, for researchers, it was part of the field. And marketing departments, they loved it. Slap AI on a product, make it sound cool.
Yeah, AI powered everything.
Exactly. But now, fast forward to today, lawmakers globally are trying to build serious regulatory frameworks.
And for that, you need clarity.
You absolutely need a clear, actionable definition. Otherwise, you're building laws on shaky ground.
And it gets even more complicated. We find out that even in scholarly literature, there's no single universally accepted definition.
Still.
After all this time.
Still. Take Alan Turing's imitation game from 1950. That led to the Turing test, right?
Right. Can a machine fool a human?
Exactly. It defined machine intelligence by its ability to deceive.
Yeah.
But then you look at things like the Lubner Prize, these chatbot competitions.
Yeah, they can be good at mimicry, at deception, but it doesn't necessarily correlate with what we'd call genuine everyday intelligence. Being tricky isn't the same as being smart, necessarily.
That's a really good point. And this historical struggle really sets the stage for the problems lawmakers face now.
Definitely. And even standard textbooks like Russell and Norvig's Artificial Intelligence, a modern approach.
The big one, yeah.
It doesn't give you one definition. It offers 4 possibilities based on acting or thinking human or acting or thinking rationally.
Which just highlights how much we tend to anthropomorphize AI, right? We keep trying to measure it against ourselves.
We do. Now let's tackle something you've probably run into. People using AI and machine learning, ML, interchangeably.
Oh, all the time.
But the source is really clear here. ML is just a subset of AI.
A very important subset right now, but still just a part.
And crucially, when we equate AI only with ML, we actually leave out a really important branch of AI history. Expert systems.
Ah, the knowledge-based systems. Good old-fashioned AI, some might say.
Right. They apply symbolic rules, human knowledge, using a knowledge base and an inference engine.
And some of the first commercially successful AI systems were exactly these, rule-based expert systems.
Yet today, you hear people, even in the AI field, kind of dismiss them.
Yeah. Oh, that's not real AI. It's just a bunch of if statements.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which leads to this really curious trend, the source points out. The label AI often gets slapped only onto the newest, shiniest tech.
The cutting edge.
There's this definition by Elaine Rich. Artificial intelligence is the study of how to make computers do things at which, at the moment, people are better.
Okay, so what does that imply?
It implies that as soon as a computer gets as good as a person at something, it stops being AI.
That's weird. Like a constantly receding horizon.
It's like a moving goalpost. So for you listening, understanding this constantly shifting definition is absolutely crucial to getting why regulation is such a challenge.
You're trying to regulate something whose definition keeps changing under your feet.
Exactly. It's a nightmare for lawmakers. Okay, so regulating how software gets used isn't totally new. You mentioned GDPR.
Right, the EU's General Data Protection Regulation. It already puts limits on purely automated decisions that significantly affect people.
But what is new are these attempts at, well, comprehensive or horizontal regulations, trying to cover AI technology broadly.
And for that kind of law, you really, really need that clear definition we've been talking about,
Yeah.
which is proving difficult.
Hugely difficult.
Yeah.
And looking broadly, lawmakers seem to be choosing different paths than scientists for their definitions.
How so?
Well, take the U.S. blueprint for an AI Bill of Rights. Apparently, it just avoids defining AI altogether.
Just type of the question.
Seems so. Then the executive order on safe, secure, and trustworthy AI does define it, but focuses on systems that perceive and abstract perceptions into models.
Which sounds very much like it's targeting machine learning specifically.
Yeah, and again, kind of anthropomorphizing it, making it sound human-like.
And elsewhere.
In Africa, the AUDA white paper talks about simulation of human intelligence and mimicking humans' actions.
So, echoing those act human and think human ideas from the academic world, it seems everyone's circling the same drain, definitionally speaking.
Pretty much. But the real deep dive into this struggle comes from the EU's AI Act. Its whole development process is a case study in this definitional mess.
Okay, walk us through that.
So, the European Commission's first draft, really broad definition, covered techniques like ML, logic-based approaches. Potentially almost any software could have fallen under it.
Wow, that's casting a wide net.
Too wide, maybe. So the council tried to narrow it. They introduced this idea of elements of autonomy.
Okay, elements of autonomy, what does that actually mean?
Exactly. It just created new vagueness. Then finally, the European Parliament adopted a version of the OECD definition.
The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development.
Yep, and that was updated and became the final version in the Act, adopted March 13th, 2024.
And what does that definition say?
It describes an AI system as a machine-based system designed to operate with varying levels of autonomy that infers from the input it receives how to generate outputs.
Okay, infers. That word seems key. What's the issue there?
Well, scientifically, both machine learning systems and those rule-based expert systems we talked about, they both perform inference. They draw conclusions from data or rules.
Right, so does that mean a simple calculator infers the answer when you type 2 plus 2?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? The source implies it's unclear. Ultimately, it looks like it'll be up to the courts to interpret infers.
That seems like a recipe for uncertainty.
And get this, the Act's own recital, the explanatory text.
The note's trying to clarify the law.
Yeah, it tries to help. It explicitly excludes simpler traditional software and systems based on rules defined solely by natural persons.
Okay, so simple stuff and human-defined rules are out. That seems clearer.
But then, in the very next breath, it explicitly includes logic and knowledge-based approaches that infer from encoded knowledge.
Wait, so rules defined by humans are out, but systems that infer from encoded knowledge, which often are rules defined by humans, are in.
The author literally calls it an oxymoron. It highlights just how deep the confusion runs, even in the final text.
Well, okay, so the definition is a mess.
That seems to be the argument. So if all these definitions are so flawed, the core point of the commentary comes sharp into focus. Is artificial intelligence even a meaningful category for regulation?
Right. Is the label itself useful for the goal of regulation?
Exactly. Lawmakers regulate tech to prevent harm, right? Safety, fairness, avoiding bad outcomes.
Sure, that's the point.
But the argument here is that the label AI isn't actually a reliable indicator of how much danger a system poses or even what kind of danger.
Just calling something AI doesn't automatically tell you if it's risky or how risky it is.
Precisely. It's like trying to regulate vehicles based only on whether they use petrol or electricity rather than focusing on speed limits, driver training, roadworthiness, the things that actually relate to the risk of accidents.
That makes sense. And focusing regulation only on things labeled AI could lead to weird outcomes.
Like what?
Well, you might end up over-regulating some perfectly harmless system just because it technically fits the complex AI definition.
Okay.
And, maybe worse, you could underregulate a genuinely harmful system simply because it uses older tech or simple rules, and therefore doesn't get labeled AI under the current definition.
So you miss the real risks.
Potentially, yes. Now, the AI Act tries to be risk-based. It has categories, like GDPR does. Unacceptable risk, like social scoring systems, which are banned,
Right.
down to high-risk systems that need lots of safeguards, and then lower-risk categories.
So it aims for risk-based regulation.
It aims for it.
Right.
But the central critique remains. Can an AI Act ever be truly application risk-based if its starting point is the assumption that AI, this specific, poorly defined set of technologies, is the thing that needs special rules?
It seems like a contradiction. Let's make this concrete. The source uses a great example. Hiring systems.
Okay, yeah, that's a critical application.
We know systems are used to screen job applications, and sometimes they've shown biases, right? Like gender bias discovered in some systems.
Absolutely, it's a well-documented problem.
So the AI Act correctly classifies these hiring systems as high risk. That means they need things like representative training data, good documentation, human oversight. Makes sense.
Seems reasonable.
Now, imagine 3 hypothetical systems, let's call them A, B, and C, all used to pick candidates for interviews based on application forms, including grades.
Okay, 3 systems doing the same job.
System A uses a random forest model. It's trained on historical hiring data, clearly machine learning, clearly AI under any definition, including the acts.
Got it. System A is modern AI.
System B is an old-school expert system.
Yeah.
Managers define the hiring criteria, it uses a knowledge base, maybe converts different grade systems using rules.
Okay, classical AI, which the Act does seem to cover, despite the recital confusion.
Right, and System C is just a simple low-code system, straightforward filters like grade must be 9 or higher, no fancy algorithms.
Stuff most people wouldn't call AI at all, just basic filtering.
Exactly. Now, imagine all 3 are used by a Dutch company that really cares about grades.
Okay.
If their historical data for System A or the rules programmed into System B or C are based only on seeing applications from Dutch and German universities,
Uh-oh. I see where this is going.
all 3 systems might learn or be programmed to effectively filter out anyone from a country with a different grading scale, like Switzerland, where a 6 is the best grade, not a 9 or 1.
So all 3 systems, regardless of the tech inside.
Could discriminate against the Swiss applicant in exactly the same way.
Wow. The harm, the potential discrimination is identical across all 3.
Identical. Whether it's complex ML, an expert system, or a simple filter, the consequence for the applicant is the same.
That really drives the point home.
So what's the takeaway here? The author argues, pretty persuasively I think, that if a system makes recommendations on something critical like hiring,
We should demand transparency, explainability, documentation.
completely independent of whether we label the technology inside as AI or not. Because the harm isn't primarily determined by the tech label.
It's determined by the application, the context, the impact.
Exactly. So instead of tying themselves in knots trying to define AI, maybe lawmakers should, as the author suggests, regulate application risks.
Make it a Software Systems Act or something similar, covering all software with significant impact.
That's the idea. Focus on the impact, not the label.
Interesting. Okay, but the discussion doesn't stop there, right? The source mentions something specific about the AI Act.
Ah, yes. It pivots to a specific kind of weird deviation within the act. General purpose AI models.
Like the big generative models we hear about constantly,
Sure.
GPT-4, things like that.
Exactly those. And regulating these models specifically caused the EU to, well, diverge from its own risk-based principle, according to the author.
How so? What's different about them?
Well, normally, the AI Act regulates the system that uses an AI model, like the hiring system using an AI, not the underlying model itself.
Okay, regulates the application, not the tool in isolation. Makes sense with the previous argument.
But for these general-purpose models, the model itself gets regulated, separate from how it's used.
Regardless of the application risk.
Seems so. And what's really striking is how they define systemic risk for these models to trigger the regulation.
How do they define it? Is it based on potential harm?
Nope.
Okay.
It's based purely on the computational power used for training. Specifically, if the training used more than 10 to the power of 25 FLOPs.
125 floating point operations per second. That's
Yeah.
a very technical threshold.
It is. And just for context, the source points out that GPT-3, which felt huge when it came out,
Yo, it was a big deal.
wouldn't even meet that threshold.
Seriously. So the threshold is already potentially outdated, or at least backward looking.
It seems like an odd choice for future-proofing, doesn't it? especially since compute power keeps doubling roughly every 2.5 years.
And more compute doesn't always mean a better model, let alone a riskier one. Bad data trained with lots of power is still bad data.
Right. And there's another point. While these large language models, LLM, seem general purpose because they can do so many tasks,
Write poems, code, summarize text.
fundamentally they're trained for one very specific thing: predicting the next word or token.
That's technically true, yeah.
So an LLM that's trained but just sits there, never applied, it doesn't really cause harm beyond maybe its energy consumption during training.
The risk comes when it's used for something.
Exactly. And if an LLM is used in that high-risk hiring system we talked about,
The hiring system is already regulated as high risk under the Act anyway.
precisely. So it begs the question, why the separate regulation just for the general purpose model itself?
Is there any rationale offered?
Well, one key difference this creates is that the model provider, OpenAI, Google, whoever, now bears direct regulatory responsibility for the model itself. That is new.
Ah, okay, so it puts obligations directly on the developers of these big models.
Yes. And the author speculates this might be a reaction to things like ChatGPT, where the LLM is made directly available to the public, not embedded in a specific end product.
So because the application isn't predefined by the developer.
Maybe, but the author points out other types of models, like sentiment analysis tools, can also be used in lots of different ways, some low risk, some high risk.
Like analyzing product reviews versus deciding employee bonuses based on sentiment.
Exactly. That problem of dual use potential isn't unique to giant LLMs.
So the argument is that this issue of models being usable in different risk contexts should have been handled within the existing risk framework.
That seems to be the contention. Handle it consistently, rather than creating this whole separate category for GPAI models that breaks the risk-based logic.
It feels, the author suggests, a bit like maybe the political desire to be seen doing something specific about generative AI, and maybe be first with dedicated AI law, overshadowed the goal of consistent, comprehensive risk regulation.
A case of specific tech hype-driving policy, maybe more than underlying principles.
That seems to be the implication.
Wow. Okay, we have definitely unpacked a lot today.
We really have.
From that slippery, elusive definition of artificial intelligence itself, through the twists and turns of the EU AI Act's attempts to regulate it.
And landing on this core argument from our source, that focusing on the label AI might be fundamentally misguided compared to focusing on the risk of the software's application.
Yeah. And looking at the bigger picture, what this really highlights is just how incredibly complex regulating fast-moving technology is.
It's a huge challenge. But the core takeaway, I think, for everyone listening is that the potential harm a piece of software can cause. It's not mainly about whether it uses the latest AI buzzword tech.
It's about what it does in the real world, its application, its context.
Exactly.
So what does this mean for you listening? Well, as these systems make more and more decisions affecting our lives, jobs, loans, who knows what else.
Understanding how they're regulated and the logic, or maybe the flaws and the logic behind those regulations, becomes really important.
Yeah. And this whole push for dedicated AI regulation rather than maybe broader software systems regulation focused on risk, it might genuinely be a case of form over function.
It definitely leaves us with a big question to think about.
Which is?
Well, if the real goal is preventing harm, ensuring safety and fairness, should lawmakers keep chasing specific technologies with these definitions that seem to change every few years? Or should they focus on the universal principle of risk? Apply consistent standards to any software that has a significant impact, regardless of the code underneath.
That's a great question to leave folks with. Think about that. And maybe consider the next time you see an AI news story. Don't just ask what the tech is, but really think about what its application means for people.
Good advice.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the fascinating and sometimes, frankly, confusing world of AI regulation.